my name is Dr. Bruce Starlight. My real name is Spotted Eagle. And that name was given to my dad. And his dad was Spotted Eagle. And before that, he was Spotted Eagle. So it goes way back in my family. And that name is attached to our medicine pipe. So if you want to hear that story, I'll tell you about it.
Sure, tell us about it.
So it's like we're I'm Dene, Plains Dene. I've been I'm one of the last fluent in the speakers, and so there's only maybe 8 or 9 of us left. That's mobile. The rest they know the language, but they've been, set aside from it. So my name, Spotted Eagle, my grandfathers and my uncles, Dave Crowchild, Dick Starlight, Frank One Spot, and Jim Dodging Horse. They gave me that name. I don't know if you're old enough. Do you remember our little dancing floor at the old hall? So you must be just a kid. Anyway, so that was where they gave me the name. And then, so Spotted Eagle, and there was 2 of them. His friend, he's like a brother, but he was a friend. His name was Broken Knife. He had 2 names, Broken Knife and Crow Flag. So they went, the white man, they were looking for medicine men. And so they went trading. And then when they get to the fort, they used to go on a canoe, a boat. So Spotted Eagle, he started flirting with the trader's wife. And then so the trader kind of noticed it, eh? And then so that evening, Broken Knife told me, quit it, she's getting mad, he said. Even that evening, he, got some ducks for her and gave her to her to cook. So, so the trader, he knew that they were looking for medicine men. 2 of them were medicine men. And so he got them drunk, and then he got them passed out, and he shackled them. Then he put them on a ship. And then somehow Broken Knife managed to get away. But him, Spotted Eagle, they took him over. So they wanted to test his power. So the first thing was they lowered him into the ground. It was just full of snakes. And they put him down, and then the snakes lifted their head, looked around. And he told them, it's me, Spotted Eagle. Lie down. So they laid down. So they went to check on him again, and they found he was still alive. So they took him out again. The next one was lions. The same thing, they put him down. And then he said the same thing. It's I, Spotted Eagle. Just lie down. So the lions lied down. So they were, how you say, they were testing him, eh? So he was telling the story. He said, they took me to a tall building. And they led me up, he said. They led me up to the top. And he said that building, he said it was high, and then when we got to the top, it was like ice around, he said. So that's the windows, eh? And then he said it was like the sun was right there. And it was really hot, he said. So I take it to be a lighthouse. They put him in a lighthouse. So all that was in that lighthouse was a rock and a file. And then so when he gets thirsty, he starts singing his songs. He starts filing that rock. And then it turns to water, and just to, keep his mouth moist. So they went back up, and then they checked on him, and here he was still alive. They thought he'd die of thirst. So they brought him back down, and then so they told him, "You're a real bad medicine man. You got bad medicine." So they got scared of him. So they took him and they put him on an island. And then so he was crying. So this bird came and told him, "Why are you crying, grandson?" He said, "I want to see my relatives. I want to go home." Then he said, "Well, I'll take you home. You get on my back and I'll take you home. But I can't go inland. I can only go to the edge. But I already told my relatives to help you when you get back there. You go back to that fort, to that guy that sold you," he said. He said, "There's going to be a rabbit there when you get on the land. When I let you go, there's going to be a rabbit. It's going to tell you. It's going to tell you, what for you to do when you get to the fort." So he took him back across on this side, and then he put him back on the ground. So he started walking, and there was a rabbit, a female rabbit, and told him, he said, "Now," he said, "that man is really scared of you. When he sees you, he's going to be really scared of you. He's going to pile up the fur and the blankets. He's even going to offer you his wife. But don't let him fool you." He said, "There's a pipe above the door." He said, "You keep asking for that pipe." So he went there, and sure enough, the trader was just really surprised he was still alive. So he got scared. He said, even guns, even his wife. And he said, "No, I want that pipe." He said, "I can't give it to you." So like 4 times. So the 4th time, he took it down and he gave it to him. And then so he took it, and then he started walking home. And then so when and then Broken Knife saw him. He said, my friend is coming home." So he told him, "Don't look on me. Don't look on my countenance. Don't look," he said. "You're going to go blind. But you build me 4 sweats, and on the 4th sweat you can greet me, you can hug me," he told him. So he built him 4 sweats. In the first one, there was a lot of sand. The 3rd one, and then the 2nd one. And at the last one, there was just a little pile of sand. He said, "No," he said, you can greet me." So they greeted each other. And that medicine pipe is the one that Alec has, that he's looking after. So we still have it. But what happened is my uncle, Dick Starlight's father, he borrowed the bowl. He borrowed the bowl, and they gave it to him. He said, "You give it back to me." But before he gave it back, he sold it to the museum. And so it was a Cree bundle. My dad, on my dad's side, we're Cree. We're related to the whole bull reserve. That's the women. There was 12 of them, and their last. There was 12 women, and their last name was Bull. So because of that their relatives gave that medicine pipe to him. His Indian name was Captures Arrows. And so they gave it to him. And then that's when he bored it. He said, "I want to open mine. But the certain I won't go to that because it was a Cree bundle. They won't go to the ceremony." So before he could give it back, he sold it. And so our pipe bowl we still got that. We got that other pipe bundle. So Tony, he won't give it back. I told him that bowl belongs to our medicine pipe. So, and anyway, that's what happened. So that's how I got the name, and that's the story of my name. And so anyway, so that's my name, and
How do you say it in Sotena?
dit only dit lishe. That's how you say it.
I'd like to talk about this City of Calgary
Ah,
Land Acknowledgement Project. They say to acknowledge the traditional territory is to recognize our long history here
yeah,
as Blackfoot, Sotena, Stoney, and now they say the Métis. But, it's just an attempt, I guess, to reconcile, without any real change, without giving any land back. But, they want to look at decolonization, right? What are your thoughts on this whole notion of land acknowledgement?
well, it upsets me because this is Blackfoot territory. I got no qualms about it. This is your land, and we came here. So we migrated, okay. So the Denisothleni, the Chippewas, they say that there was one warlike group that was, kind of angry and always ready to fight. So by nature, the Denisothleni and the Navajo among the Dene, they're not supposed to take a human life. So they avoided. That's why they just kept moving. You see, the Cree moved in. They weren't after land. They were after the fur trade. So they moved in and they got the guns first. That's why they drove you guys south of the North Saskatchewan River. And then so they just killed. They just killed the Chippewas, the Denisothleni. So these two old women said there was this warlike group that we kind of didn't want to associate with, so we moved away. And then they moved, and then we never saw them again. But we heard that, in Chate and Fort Vermilion, that one of the men married a Tsuut'ina woman and took her home over there. So anyway, our area is the Grand Prairie area, Dunvegan, and the Clear Hills area. That's where we come from. So we start migrating. And the first people we ran into were the Bloods. And we had a fight with them. But they withdrew. They left us alone. And then so we kept migrating. And we came here, where we are today. And because the land, if you take a look at our land, and you take a look at Fort Vermilion, all that area, it's hilly. And there's a lot of, creeks and whatnot. So the land is exactly the same over here. Because from time immemorial, way before contact, the Dene people, we were told to have our homes near the mountains or high hills. So you see the Apaches, the Navajo, the people through the mountains, their homes are in the mountains or high hills. Because at end times, that's going to be your only sanctuary, is the mountains. It's going to open up for the Dene people. And the Creator is going to allow you to go in so you'll be safe. So that's why we're here. That's why we're where we are. We wanted that land. And so we kept migrating. And, how you say, our protocol. We must have asked the Blackfoot if we could stay. So to us, the chief of the Middle Blackfoot was the chief of all the Confederacy. So we must have asked them if we could stay. So like a royal decree, they said, you could stay where you are. You can be there. And so as time passed, and warfare became more aggressive, we divided up the land for protection of the chief of the Middle Blackfoot. So you guys, you kept out the Shoshone, Bannock, the Crows, the Sioux, the Cheyenne. You kept them out. And Three Bulls of the North Blackfoot, him, that Red Deer area, that was his area. He was the last one to come in to sign. He didn't want to sign. That was his area. And then the Pagans, right from where they are in the south, right to the end of the Porcupine Hills. Then from there, that was ours. We kept the Stonies and the Cree and the Shuswap. We were friendly with the Shuswap Confederacy. So we kept them out. So all of us, we were assigned a different place in the Blackfoot territory to protect. In the area between Red Deer River and Battle River, that was a free area. The tribes agreed that it was going to be a neutral area because the last of the buffalo herds, that's where they were. And the elk, there was a lot of elk. So they agreed to share it. But because the Cree signed first and the commissioners wanted to get the land, they told the Cree to claim it all, the Red Deer River. That's why they got it. But the Battle River, that was the end of their territory. And you see, there's no Cree south of the Battle River. All that area is free. But I don't want to start trouble. And then, so I'm telling you why I'm saying, I'm getting to the point where you want me to talk about it. And the Stonies, they came from the Bighorn area. And they were brought here by George and John McDougall to work on the railways. And they stayed because the mission was right there. So there was a Stony Soot in a mission. When you go up Scott Lake, that Scott Lake Hill? On the other side towards, what was his last name? There was a rancher there, Harvey. Anyway, his first name was Harvey. I'll remember it. There's a Soot in a Stony mission there. And that's our land. We got land there. But anyway. So that's how the Stonies came here. Because when the Pembina area, nobody signed it away. Because the Crees didn't claim it. The Blackfoot didn't claim it. So that's where the Stony land's supposed to be. So what they did is they brought Crees and Ojibwe and Iroquois and Métis and made them settle the Sunshine Ochis. So when they signed the treaty, they told them, as far as a man can walk in a day, they'll be the size of your reserve. So that's why they just got a small reserve. So that's how Sunshine Ochis, and then they signed the Pembina Range away. That's what I understand. So I don't want to cause trouble. But me, like I said, I have no qualms that this is Blackfoot territory. And your territory was quite large because we met you guys at Fort Vermilion. We traded medicine. And then there's a Blackfoot-speaking people on the other side of the Dene. They speak Blackfoot. And so that's how they got isolated somehow, maybe through the smallpox or something. They didn't come back. But they speak Blackfoot. And how do I know? my mother-in-law took some people up that way. And then they were on a bus, Greyhound bus. And these people were talking Blackfoot. And they told him, where are you from? And they said, up that way. And he said, we're Blackfoot. Yeah, I said, you're talking Blackfoot. So that is how I know there's still Blackfoot up there. And to me, I don't know about you, the ripstones mark the Blackfoot territory. And I think that's not too far-fetched, because you take this ripstone here at Okotoks, it goes all the way to Provo, the ripstones. So me, I say that's how the Blackfoot marked their territory. And my wife's nephew, he was a researcher. And in the research, there's 9 hills that the Blackfoot had. I'm talking about your culture, but we're a part of it, so I'm telling you. He said there's 9 high hills in the Blackfoot territory that they communicated. And one of them is Spy Hill, and the other ones is, what do you call that? Sweetgrass Hills. And so there was people there that were charged to look after the Blackfoot territory. So they have ways of signaling. So probably smoke, that the buffalo were coming or the enemy was coming. So that's what I know. There was 9 hills. So if you went to the Sweetgrass Hills and look as far as you can, you probably can see them. So that's what I know of the Blackfoot. Eh? So we came here, and then so we acculturated. Wherever the Dene were, they acculturated, I say respectfully to the people they were next to. Like the Navajo and Apache, long ago they were one group. The Mexicans called them Apache de Navajo. So they were one group, but for some reason, I think they had a fight over a child, and then they separated. And then so they took on the Pueblo and the Hopi culture. And us, we took on your culture. And so, but our mainstay, before we came here, was the moose. That's all we lived on, was the moose and, whatever was there, what was edible. So that was before we came to the plains. And when we came to the plains, it was just buffalo. But they look for moose, because that nose, the moose nose, it's very delicious. You burn it, you put it in the fire, you burn it. Well, it's charred, So you scrape all that charred part off, and then you boil it. You change the water twice. So, and it's delicious, because it's cartilage, most of it, and you can eat the cartilage.
Yeah. You're making me hungry.
So anyway, one time, this guy, I'm just going to ramble on.
Okay.
This Chippewan, this Dennis Utlini, he was at treatment at our center. And he came up, he used to come up for a sweat. I said, well, just get it going. So he just gets it going, and I sweat him. Here there's 2 moose not far from the house. And he shot them. And he skinned them. But he didn't cut them here. He cut them this way. And then he took all the guts out. And then he cleaned them. Just in the snow, he cleaned them. And then the tongue, the kidneys, everything, he put in one pot. And the tripe, everything, he just boiled it. Like us, when we cook tripe, he would cook it about 3 or 4 hours. Him, just about 45 minutes, start chewing. The tongue, everything, he threw it in one pot. I never thought I'd see it again until I went to the Apaches, the Mescalero Apache. Well, they're our relatives. I went there, and there was a big lineup. And then they were giving us food. Go ahead, line up, line up. Here they had a big pot, about that big. And in there, they had all the tribe, they had the tongue, just like that guy. The two cultures, after thousands of years, matched something in a ceremonial manner. It blew my mind. So anyway, but through the respect, they intermarriage, making relatives. You guys gave us 5 societies. You gave us the brave dogs. You gave us the black soldiers. You gave us the one that makes relatives. You gave us the doves, and you gave us the mosquitoes. The 5 societies. Enough to have Sundance. They kept the motoke and the horns to themselves, the Bloods and the Blackfoot, because you guys made the law for all of the Confederacy, all the Confederacy land, and we abided by it. And whatever they said, we abided because we're visitors, see? So we had a Sundance, and then, so our last Sundance was where the casino is. Kind of southwest from the casino. They found a post, the remnants of the post, with that machine. And so anyway, so this woman told her husband, I'm going to make a Sundance. The man said, I get tired of taking the pipe around. She didn't say anything. So she finished the Sundance. And she said, that's what you said. And I tried to keep myself for you, just for you. I'm not going to do it anymore. So she took the holy headdress and she took it to the agency, and she gave it to the farm instructor's wife. And so we lost it. We lost that holy headdress. And then, but we found it. It was a Lee family. They took it and then they gave it to the Glenbow Museum. And I cut hold of it. I said, we want it back. You can have everything else, we just want a holy headdress. So our story about that holy headdress, there was a moose, a bull moose, high up on the ridge. And this cow moose was lying in the open. And this man was sneaking up on her, was going to kill her. And she had that holy headdress on, that moose. And then so that bull moose made the man fall asleep. So he fell asleep. And then so the bull just came, just snorting around the cow. Just really mad, kicking by his ears. When they get mad, the moose, they kick right by their ears. Right by their ears, right here. And they shake their head. So he was doing that. So the cow moose got mad and told him, how can I be with another man when I'm wearing this headdress, this holy headdress? So the man, while all that was going on, dreamt about that holy headdress. And then he made one, and he gave it to the people who do those things. That's our remake of the Not to Us. That's how we remade it, but it comes from a moose. So a moose is still in our culture, even our beaver bundle. And then so we get to the separation stories, one of them. So they were migrating. And then the ice was thin because it was springtime. And we always had you guys call it a beaver bundle, but we always had, it's a water bundle. To means water. So it always went ahead. And then so they they cross with always ahead of the people. They cross with it first. So the chiefs told everybody, the different band chiefs, get across the lake. It was Buffalo Lake. Get across the lake. The ice is thin. So as they were crossing, this woman had her child on her back, and he saw something sticking under the ice. He started crying. He wanted it, and her mom kept they're telling us to hurry. So finally, the women, they always had an axe and a knife and their sewing stuff on their belt. So she took her axe and she started chopping at that horn. It was a horn. Started chopping. Here it was a tuscan, the dragon. And so he chopped at it, started moving. And then the ice started to crack. Then he come out of the water. Whole bunch of people died in that lake. And then, so 4:00 in the evening, in the afternoon, if you go there, they say you can still hear the people crying and yelling in the afternoon, the time it happened. So Harley Crowchild, Ronald, and Tom Heavenfire, they went there to camp. And then here they heard it, and Harley took off. They bought a room. But they say about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you go there. So our story of the Buffalo Lake, these two guys, they were hunting buffalo. And then, so they killed one. And the head was facing east. And then so they start skinning it. Here they cut the water back, and the water start flowing. And then, so it started to flood the land. The one guy took off right away. He ran along the bum and he took off. But the other guy, he stayed. And then he saw the water filling up. So today, if you go under the Buffalo Lake up north of Edmonton, there's an island there. And the Tsut in the say that's the buffalo carcass still there. So we came here, we stayed here. Calgary never wanted us here. And so they always wanted to get rid of us. And so that Reverend George McDougall, he became friends with Bullhead. And then he told, he had 6 heifers. And he told Bullhead, the white man wants to cut your reserve in half. And he wants to raise some buffalo there. And he was just seething, Bullhead. And then he told him, I thought you were my friend. He said, look at all the land you took. Look what you left me. This is all I have for my people. He said, no, I'm not going to sell 1 inch of this land. So now you go away forever and don't come back, he told him. So he chased them away. So right until 1911, the Tsut in it, people kept coming to them. They won't sell it. As soon as Bullhead dies, that fall, they start leasing the land. And then 1952, they sold the land. So it was my grandfather that I was telling you about, that Dave Crowchild. He was the one that sold it. And then, so my other grandfather, Birdie, he loved his drinks. He went looking for him. He was going to beat the shit out of him because he sold the land. Here he took off until his brother settled down. So you see the same story I'm telling again about Blackfoot culture. sitting on eagle tail feathers. Or was it a crow eagle? No, crow eagle. He sold that pagan, that Porcupine Hills, he sold it. So these two pagans, this is the story I heard, got him drunk. And they found his body in the middle, in the coulee. They killed him because he sold it. So anyway, so we came here, and then most of our stories are from you guys because you were here, and we just used them. And you know, one of the things is the confluence of the Elbow and Bow River. So it's the story we heard from you guys. It's Napi. He's holding a bow, and then Elbow is like this. That's how it comes to the bow. It's Napi that's holding the bow, and then his head is Blind Man River, and then his breastplate is the Porcupine Hills. And the Old Man River, they got another story about it, goes all the way down to Idaho. And in Idaho, the water separates like this. And there you can see his penis. That's Napi all the way, right from there, all the way to Idaho. If you take the topographical map or satellite image, you'll see the whole thing. So that's what I know of it. And so my stories about Calgary would be about Nose Hill. So when they came here, they were around here. So this Blackfoot, he got jealous of his wife, and they used to cut their nose before the bone. If you cut it past the bone, they breathe like that. So they careful what they cut. He cut her nose, and he took a stick, a willow, and put it at the end of that stick. That was on Nose Hill. And so one of the stories of Bullhead, they were deadly scared of Bullhead, the Cree. He had an axe and an American sword. And the story about him is he killed more men than all of the Tsuut'ina put together with that axe and that sword. So that story, they caught the Cree on that on Nose Hill, and he was chasing him, and then he was on horseback. So he ran out of arrows and bullets. So the Cree had nothing. He started chasing him, and then so he started throwing rocks at him. And then I don't know how he got hold of a bow. It must have been that Cree guy. He was going to shoot him. And then just before that, his brother, Little Chief, the Crees, they went to Rocky Mountain House in the fall time to trade. And then so Bullhead, they were walking. Bullhead kept seeing someone go like that in the trees. And then he told Little Chief, he said, there's somebody here watching us, he said. And Little Chief said, don't pay any attention to it. The Crees, they don't make war in the fall time. So here Little Chief took a good look. He seen him. They started running. And they had their wives with them. So they started running. And then this Cree, he was on a horse. He jumped off, and then he knelt down on one knee, and then he took aim at Little Chief. And he shot him right here. He fell. And then he told Bullhead, go away and get some help and hide the women. So he left, and then he hit the woman, and he came. There was Blackfoots nearby camping. So he went back to the Tsuut'ina camp, and then they came, and then they drove the the Cree away. But the Cree, they usually, like you guys, they mutilate the body. And they drag it all over the place. They didn't do that to him. They put out a blanket for him. They cleaned him up all the blood on him. And they put him down and they put his rifle on his chest. So when Bullhead went looking for him, he found him. And then he just had enough strength to give that rifle to Bullhead and told him, you be the next chief. That's how Bullhead became chief. So when he died, they put him in his teepee, little chief. And they put a rope around it and they left. Long ago, they used to do that, us anyway. Up to the time of this guy called Joe Pinto. They were scared of him because he was the first Christian. And the Tsut'ina refused. Bullhead told him, don't get baptized. Half of your power is going to be lost to get baptized. So they won't get baptized. So he got baptized because his mother was my great-grandmother. And so he got baptized. So he lived alone. So he died. And then they didn't know what to do with him. So they put his saddle, they put everything in there. He had a little cabin. Must be just so small. And then, ID blanket door here. So there, they put a rope around his house. They killed his favorite horse and they left.
So when we talk about those old times, there was, like you said, protocols. There was land acknowledgement between the Tsut'ina, the Blackfoot, the Crees, and there was respects, and there was acknowledgements, and there was true, I guess, stewardship of these areas. And there was respect when they wanted to go hunt and so forth. Nowadays, they say, well, in the act of reconciliation, we're going to start to acknowledge this land as Treaty 7 Nations, as the Métis, right? Do you think the modern land acknowledgement concept has any weight to it, or does it speak to reconciliation?
At my age, we still got to respect the Blackfoot. It's their land. And they were the stewards. So you got to respect that. Eh? And so we did our share of looking after where we were until the alcohol and the fur trade came and the guns. That's what started the intertribal conflict. And that's when the drinking, they go to war half pissed. And then that's when it started falling apart. And that's one of the main reasons that we signed treaty, because the liquor was killing us. And so, and my granny's story, when they go to trade and when they're singing, they've been drinking. So they had a big pot, and right in the middle of the camp, they start pouring the whiskey into that big pot. And all the women and children start taking out. And then they start drinking. That's when they start shooting. And so that was a very sad time. Well, just like today. This drugs is killing our kids. Same thing. All you could do is watch and pray. So the dark times, we're still in the dark times, but we're going to come out of it. And, the young people are going to realize that we can't do this all our lives. We've got to become human again. That day will come because our prayers are very strong. So that's what happened. And so the stewardship started to fall apart. The wolfers were the worstest people on the prairies. They're the ones that Cypress Hills massacre. So the Cypress Hills, all the tribes, again, agreed that was going to be a neutral area so they could dig the ancient medicines. The glaciers, the last glaciers was like this, like a how you say, a triangle, like that. It missed the Cypress Hills. So at Cypress Hills, you'll find plants that don't grow anywhere else. And the Blackfoot, they called Banff the sleeping buffalo. And if you turn that corner, just when you pass the gate, you look west. They call it Tunnel Mountain, but that's a sleeping buffalo. You take a look at it. Cascade Mountain, again, that's the only place you can get this woman's medicine. So that's why they kept it. And all that was still Blackfoot country, because it was a Blackfoot Forest Reserve.
I know they call it Cypress Hills, Sweetgrass Hills, and Chief Mountain, that whole area, the medicine line.
Yeah,
And that's why they still call the border
yeah,
the medicine line. Eh?
yeah.
So maybe share with us if you have any stories. I know language is linked to the land.
Yeah.
You know, they're connected, you know, language and the land, right? Maybe you could share with us some stories about this area, the relationship that Sutena had with the Blackfoot and with the land here.
Well,
If there's any origin stories or any stories from your grandparents that shared with you.
I'll share one story with you. My grandmother, she was traditional and very strong Christian, but she practiced both. Eh? So one day, I was digging. You know my house. You see all the rocks, and she came. She always used to walk down, once or twice a week to check on me. And then, so I was digging. It was hot like other day. And then I walked in, and I kissed her, and then my wife fed her. And so, how are you? She said. I said, I'm tired. I said, I've been digging, and all I've been hitting is rocks. I said, I don't like this place. I said, and she said, she wouldn't like this. So she finished eating, and we start visiting. And then before she left, she said, Kla, that means dear one. Don't ever say what I heard again, she said. The rocks got big ears. The earth has big ears. If you keep saying that and they get mad, you're never going to be happy here. So I never said that again. Because long ago, even like you, I'm sorry for pointing, like even you, today, if your uncles were around and they gave you hell, you just sit there. And you just go like that. Even though they're wrong, you just sit there. But today, the kids talk the same as you're talking, they're talking. And then you don't get anywhere. You just get mad. And so that's the way it was with my granny. And you're only told once. So to repeat it, it means you're not listening. You'll never listen. But they repeat it 4 times, sometime in your lifetime. And then the other thing was my uncle. We're hunting elk at Yahatinda. We killed lots, and we just gave it out. And then he said, what's that meat? I got it, cut up at the butcher. He said, what's that? I said, that's elk meat. Anatishiyaneste. That means you're starting to murder. You're not killing anymore. You're murdering. He said, they're going to get mad. He said, you take your gun and you hang it up till fall time. So I had to go home and I hung it up. But that's a respect for the animal spirit. So in the natural law, in our worldview, the population of the animals, the birds, they were greater than us. So it was by their rules we had to live. And we watched them and we acted like them. And if we wanted to know what medicine we should dig, what food we should eat, we follow the bear around. Except for one, it's a snakeberry. Only the bear can eat that. We can't. It's poison. So we follow him around. And then you watch him. The wild parsnips that grow in the bush, he's the one that knows when it turns poisonous. You can eat it when the root is about like that, but when they get this long and the leaves change, you can't eat it. The wild parsnip. So that's how you know. You watch the bear. So the other thing is the bear too. When we're picking berries, we never say bear. Our old word for bear is shush. But over the years, because we had so much respect for the bear, we call them our uncle. Nina, our uncle. Gina, the children, the one that has white hands, the one that sleeps in the trees. We never say bear. Because as soon as you say bear, he's right there. And then you don't know what he's going to do. Because you called him, he gets mad. So when we're picking, we never say bear. And then when you're picking, you always quiet. You talk in a quiet voice, almost a whisper. You don't talk the way we're talking now. You talk really low. Because for one thing, the Sasquatch, he doesn't like noise. He comes right there and he does harm to you. So we see the Sasquatch on the reserve. One time they saw him, and then they came to me and my brother-in-law. So we had to find tripe. The Sasquatch likes tripe. So we had a hard time because butchers, they won't do it anymore. So we had to go to the Hutterites. So we told them, when are you going to kill? He said, well, you're lucky, we're going to kill today. We want the tripe, we said, and the lungs. So we put it out for him. We put the offerings around the food. We put tobacco. Then we called him. We called him 4 times. Did not show. 4 times. We brought some food for you. Leave us alone. Don't harm us. So and then you back up, then you erase your footprints. So respectful. If you respect them, they respect you. If you harm them in any mean way, they come back to you. Especially the deer. The deer's kind of, you can't trust him.
I hit 3 deer this past month.
Huh?
I hit 3 deer this past month.
Yeah.
They keep coming back.
Yeah. Well, that's an accident. But if you intended to hurt them, and when they cry at you, and you're hunting, or you cried, you got to shoot it right away. Because it wants to die. It's crying to die. If you leave it, then harm comes. And then and one time, I tracked a moose all morning, early in the morning. Tracked it and way up. I had a good shot. But he looked back at me. He just yelled, "Ooh!" I just turned around and went home. You're not supposed to. chase them, when they yell at you, you just leave. You just leave them alone. Because their spirit gets mad. And you never waste their food. If you're gonna leave some for the dogs, well, you give it to the dogs. Don't leave it hanging around. And then if there's bones left over, you collect it all. You collect it all and you bury it. So that's how you respect them. You don't leave their bones around. That's why there's no monuments to us. We didn't make monuments. We weren't allowed to because Creator didn't like it. That's why only our stories carry the weight of truth. So when we're growing up, that's why they tell you, don't lie. You were told that. Don't lie. That's the first commandment is don't lie. And so when you don't lie, that means you respect everything and everybody. So that's the first rule that you're brought up with. And tatitle, pray. Even when you walk, like it's our job now that we're older. We've got to light this much morning and night, every day. We can't forget. And then children, like the oldest and the youngest, you treat them special. And the others are supposed to understand because they're bookends. And they hold the ones in the middle, they hold them safe because they're bookends, the oldest and the youngest. Their soul stands guard on everybody. So that's how us anyway. That's what we do. We spoil the oldest and the youngest.
Mm-hmm. When we talk about the city of Calgary, acknowledging the people of Treaty Number 7 in the Blackfoot Territory and our relatives, the Sutena and the Stoney, and even the Métis, right? And, our creation stories go way back, right? So, at the end of the day, what would you tell Napigwegs about this land, the history of our people, and what would you want them to understand about us?
Well, there was, all I can say, Nabe, is that one time I did a prayer for Henry Weiswood High School. That's where I went to school. And they always get me at their graduation to say a prayer, talk to the students. And this one girl, she'd done a real good job on the land acknowledgement. And I still have a copy. I hope I still have it on my computer. But it was subtle. And it recognized being here and still respecting those that were here before. You see, I'll tell you a story. My chief, one time, he said, can you prove that we were here before the Blackfoot? I said, no, I can't. I said, because I'll be lying. I said, our area, our passageways were through the mountains. And we only came here because we were kind of chased away from the bigger group. So I can't substantiate that. I said, I'll be lying. So having said that, how do you make these people that, don't know? Like we make mistakes in these brave dogs that we formed, hey? And we say we don't know, so we got to teach them. So how do you teach someone like this woman, that Métis woman? I told them, you guys were kind of in the cities and the little towns. That's how you worked in the little farms. You went back to the towns or the cities. Oh, no, she said right away. You see, so I go back to Francis' first charger. Just leave it alone. Don't just tell the white man, leave it alone. Because they're not ready to reconcile. They think we're conquered nations. We're not conquered nations. The Americans are, New Zealand is, but not the Canadian Indians. We were not conquered. And we never gave our land away. It was a peace treaty to share. And they were made to sign it by the Royal Proclamation, 1763. It's only 6 words, I think, but that substantiates our being, our first claim to Canada. And so, why don't they reconcile the NRTA, Natural Resources Transfer Agreement, the Rupert's Land Claim, the Human Rights Charter for Indigenous people for Canada? Why don't they go back and adopt the original one that came from the UN? But when it came to Canada, Canada changed it. And then they got a clause there, I think it's clause 46, that says, yeah, we'll abide by it, but we don't have to. We can listen to it, but we don't have to abide by it. So it nullifies the whole thing. So we're reconciling, you and I, our children, our grandchildren, they're trying to reconcile. But them, they're not ready. We do a lot of programming with teachers, with companies, and I tell them, I have yet to hear a white man say, I'm sorry. But the white man says, that was my grandfather and my great-grandfather that done that to you. So why are you blaming me? I said, us, we're responsible for 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. 14 generations we're responsible for. Are the actions of our great-grandfathers and the actions of our descendants we're responsible for. So when you reconcile, when you start to reconcile, we can think of it. But me, like Francis' first charter, I say, just leave it. It's getting out of hand. You see?
Yeah.
Just go by the original treaty maps and say, look at the treaty maps. Put another focus on it instead of land. Because the Métis and the Stonies, me, as a Tsutina, I'm satisfied this is Blackfoot territory. But them, they're pushing their rights on you, you see?
Right.
And it's not Indian.